That math ain't mathin'.
Yeah.
Kevin, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's a beautiful day. Seems like winter has broke a little bit at this point, right? Yesterday it was sunny.
It's golf season for me now.
Yeah, it's getting there. I was actually skiing yesterday.
Oh, really? Okay.
I took a client skiing. Was slushy. It started sleeting on the way up north. It was a bit slushy to start and really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the day went on, the snow got a little bit grippier. So as you'd be moving, it would sort of almost trip you as you were moving along. But yeah, sun's out, getting into those 40s and even 50-degree marks.
I saw some brave souls. Well, I shouldn't say brave souls, of course, but I saw some people out in shorts too, celebrating.
Yeah, right.
We spend a lot of time indoors.
You do.
It's been pretty cold.
Yeah, it's been I don't know.
I think
Is
it's
it
more
colder this year than normal, or am I just?
I think it's a more of a normal winter. We've had two. Okay. I mean, last year really, really abnormal because we only had like 2 weeks of a consistent winter. So, but I'm liking that. Hey, you know what? Spring's on the right schedule.
Yes.
I'm taking a look at the 10-day forecast. It's 40s. That's great for the golf courses.
Yeah.
Great for spending time outside with kids too. Kids are getting a little. I shouldn't say stir crazy, but the kids obviously love playing outside too.
Yeah, I think everybody when the weather's like in the single digits and or even in the low 20s, anything below that, like you just don't want to get outside as often, right? And you really miss that. So, yeah,
people need that good vitamin D from the sun.
Absolutely. Yep, I agree. So, Will, one of the things that you shared, was it this week or just late last week that you shared?
It was last week.
Yeah, this personal savings rate chart, which we're gonna share with all of you now, and it's really interesting, right? It goes back to 1959. And all the way through the mid 80s, I'd say like 1986, there was a positive savings rate that was pretty much over 10% per household, right? And then you get to the mid late 80s, and that starts to dwindle.
Sure.
And really begins to dwindle in the late 2000s, probably like that sort of dot-com bust era. And that obviously plays into interest rates and inflation and those different things. But this got both of us thinking about why, because then you look from pretty much, we'll say the early 90s, so like 1993 all the way through 2019, the savings rate had drastically dropped. I'd say the average was maybe in that 4 or 5% range, coming down from that 10% range.
Sure.
Until COVID. And just like we talked about COVID, 2020 and 21, it went back in the green again, but now we're back in that mid 4 range. So it got me to thinking about, have we changed, right? Have our habits changed as a society, right? Where we don't emphasize saving as much. I know, we're consumers. We like to spend money. But what does it also say about, does it say something else about society and about affordability?
I would say it's keeping up with the Joneses, because imagine a time before the internet. I mean, how would you know how XYZ person 2 states away if it wasn't for HGTV's House Hunters? Just a fun example. How we can go debate, well, I don't like that kitchen as much, but maybe I like the other kitchen. I mean, how would you know that?
Yeah.
And so I think for the first time, you really saw a proliferation of, whether it was things that people are doing, whether it's through social media or Facebook, or just having access to it online. And so it really opened up people to purchase things that are easier. I mean, any time in life that you can help remove friction or barriers from things, whether it's investing and having money auto invested into a brokerage account, for instance, having money saved into different pots and pans, but then thinking about online shopping or thinking about shopping, just knowing all your options out there. How are you going to know? Because imagine for a second, you're in a small rural town, 1980, 1985. Maybe you have some catalogs. You might see some advertisements. You might hear some advertisements. But what about something that might be, maybe a little more unique of an item that would still be worthwhile having, right?
Right.
Maybe a little more off the run. So think about like dumbbells with weightlifting.
Sure.
That might not be as accessible, but now I can go search Amazon Prime. I can go get tens and thousands of possible possibilities out there too.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. I recall growing up, like people would talk about, fashion or trends start in California and they don't make their way. They start in the coast, right? East and West Coast.
Oh, sure.
And they don't make their way to the Midwest till like 18 months later, right? And I bet you, to your point, that's changed significantly now with social media and whatnot. We do know what's happening on the coasts.
Well, I think
today.
me and you can relate to this with our favorite Michigan coast being northwest
Oh yeah.
of the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. And so I think we can both relate back in 2012, 2013, when I first started visiting that area. No, I would say maybe 2008, 2009. There's barely anyone up there.
Yeah.
You can go on any trail. There might be 4 or 5 cars there.
Right.
But social media, people following, and it's really easy to go say, okay, this is the trail you should go take, but maybe there's no pictures. None of your friends might have gone on it, but there's reviews.
Yeah.
There's people sharing stuff like that. And so all of a sudden, all that information's out there.
Yeah. And that can be upsetting.
Oh,
right?
of
You
course.
find your great place. You know, it's a quiet little spot. I know I have a couple up north in that area. And, you know, initially when I went there would only be, like you said, a couple of people out there. Now suddenly there's hundreds. And you're like, wait a minute, my special little private spot.
Yeah. You're hiking through the woods. You're going like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Who are these people?
Yeah.
How do you know about my secret spot?
Yeah. So I do agree. I definitely think there's something to that. The other thing it got me thinking about was affordability, because I think it really has changed a lot. And it got me to thinking about a couple of different examples. And I used automobiles, because that's going to be a topic we're going to talk about a lot today. But when you consider like what an automobile cost back in 1970, average car in 1970 cost $3,700. Okay.
That's cheap.
Average car in 2023 is almost $49,000. Okay. So if we consider that change and you consider even inflation adjusted, if it was just inflation adjusted at 3% from 1970 until today, a vehicle today would cost $18,834. Okay.
That's surprising.
If it were just 3% inflation each year. So, but we're at 48,000, right? So I think that says something pretty significant about affordability.
Sure.
Same thing with education. So education back in 1970, average annual tuition at a public university was $405. Okay. So average, now I've actually found this to be quite low, but 2023 average annual tuition at a public university, $11,260. Okay. The other thing I want to point out is, as a percentage of income back in the 1970s, that made up about 4% of a percentage of income.
Sure.
Today, that 11,000 represents 14% of an average income. And then adjusted for inflation, had it just gone up 3% per year since the 1970s, we'd be at a little over $2,000 today. But like I said, we sit at 11,000. The other thing, I was having a conversation with someone about this yesterday, and what they pointed out I thought was really interesting. So average cost at a local public university here in the state of Michigan, back when I graduated, back in the early 90s or late 90s in terms of graduating from college, was about $30,000 at that point in time. And you would graduate and you'd go get a job making about $30,000, right? My first job was a little bit less than that, but I quickly, after probably 12 months, I was at about $30,000, right? So today, you do that same math, average cost is closer. Now this is saying $11,260. That's only tuition. When you add room and board, I'm actually going to say it's probably closer to $25,000-$30,000 a year. So you take that $30,000 a year times 4 years, you have a $120,000 investment, and you're graduating earning $50,000-$60,000 maybe, right?
That math ain't mathin'.
Yeah. So the return on investment has come down significantly, right? And again, affordability has reduced significantly. So I agree with you. There's definitely something there with keeping up with the Joneses, but affordability is definitely an issue for folks too.
Well, absolutely. And going into, any one of these topics, of course, I'm sure the Mitten Money listeners and guests and people watching the YouTube, if you don't, we have a fantastic YouTube channel. Please
Like and subscribe.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. I love watching it myself. But besides the point, though, any one of those topics could be a standalone topic and probably will be in the future. But today we are going to be talking about automobiles, financing, leasing, and everything in between, hearing about my own personal takes, Kevin's personal takes, and what we think things will go into the future.
Yeah. Well, one thing I thought, this is very relevant to me right now, as I shared with you, but I didn't share all the details.
Okay.
So
Let's
very relevant for me and my family today, because unfortunately my 17-year-old son was involved in an auto accident. And I had done a lot of research, and if you know me, you know I research everything when I'm about to make an important purchase. So when it came to buying a vehicle, what was the most reliable, safe vehicle, for my 17-year-old son. And still reigns true. The Mazda CX-50 was a very reliable vehicle. So I purchased that, I don't know, almost 2 years ago. He was involved in a pretty slight accident that resulted in bending the frame of the car. So the car's totaled. Just a little rear end accident.
That's surprising.
Yeah. No deployment of airbags or anything of that like
That's good
that.
to hear. Yeah.
But the car's totaled. Good news is I just got response from the insurance company, and they're doing a solid.
Oh, good.
So that's good. But it's gotten me in that train of thought again about, do I want to lease something new for him that might have some additional safety features that he didn't have on his other car? Or do I want to buy something used and get PLPD insurance or something on it? Because I know our rates are going to go up from where they already were, pretty astronomical. So, but before I get into what I've been thinking about, how about yourself? What are your thoughts on financing, leasing? I know you just recently bought
my wife a car, and my wife and I just bought her, replaced her old car with her new car. And so, I don't know, it's a mixed bag because I feel like last couple of years, there's some traditional math that goes behind. I mean, this is me from a nerdy perspective. There's math that goes into this as, what's more fiscally relevant, but of course, this is personal finance.
Right.
Everything's very personal to the situation. So of course, if I want a new car every single 2-3 years, leasing's a great avenue to go do that down. Or sometimes automobile companies, they want to go run specials. And so I'm sure some people have seen some great deals on electric cars over the last 3 to 6 months. I've seen some incredible deals. Incredible deals. And so it really pertains a lot to that moment in time. But so for my wife and I, we want to go upgrade her Jeep Cherokee that she owns to a Toyota Grand Highlander. And so part of the reason, a little bigger of a car. My current car is a Ford Explorer. I love that car. Bought it at Hagen Ford about 3 years ago. Great experience. But for ourselves, we wanted something just a little bit bigger because, I mean, you understand.
Growing family.
Father, 3 kids. Stuff, especially road trips.
Oh, yeah.
All of a sudden, that 3-row car gets...
Oh, yeah.
It really starts to feel pretty small on the inside. Yeah. And so we wanted something bigger, but not necessarily something really, really big, like a Suburban or a Yukon XL or something like that. So we went out looking around. My family's had really good experience with Toyotas. I know you've said some pretty nice things about Toyotas as well. And so we settled on the Grand Highlander, got a hybrid. Yeah. And it's been great.
And I played a part in this.
You did.
Right?
You did, yeah. And so you and your family, you guys were shopping for a minivan or a new car. Or Jody? Yeah.
Yep, for Jody, yeah.
Yeah.
And going back, I know I've talked about it before. That was because, and this gets back into like what we're talking about today, right? Again, I had done all my research for the car prior, which was a Honda Odyssey. Of course, Honda, known for reliability and safety and all these great things. Well, not so much with the Honda Odyssey. And if I recall correct, didn't they poke fun at the Honda Odyssey in the most recent?
I think so.
One of the more recent Marvel films. But anyhow, the transmission blew out at like 115,000 miles. So, and Honda wasn't really helpful in dealing with that. So, throw a little bit of shade at Honda because I'm not at all pleased with them, and I won't be purchasing another Honda. Toyota, great reliability. But it does get into that whole maintenance of vehicles, the reliability of a vehicle, and make sure, that Honda was only a 2019, if I'm not mistaken. So not
really?
old at all by any stretch. And like I said, 115,000 miles.
Sure. And it's something if it was something like because all cars need some forms of preventative maintenance, whether oil changes, changing out the brake pads, so on and so forth. But something to that magnitude, especially at such a young age for the car, is not likely.
And we weren't mistreating the vehicle at all, right? I mean, maybe the interior the kids were mistreating, right? Throwing their chicken nuggets under the front seat and whatnot, spilling a drink here and there.
Hopefully none in the transmission bay.
Right. But in terms of the engine itself, right? We had, all the scheduled maintenance had been taken care of and whatnot. But it does start to our vehicle, reliability when you think about not just automobiles, but let's think about appliances, really anything, televisions, home appliances, your washer, your dryer. Things aren't really made to last.
Oh, heck no. We had to go replace, and so our washer was 5 years old.
Yeah.
Samsung went out, and I don't know if when we were doing it, it went out. I think the service technician that helped us not only diagnose the problem, but then also help replace it, had mentioned that there was something with the motherboard that fried. And so this is what
it's always the motherboard.
So this is what I had to go do before we went on vacation, because it happened literally, we're doing clothes before vacation. It had locked up.
Yeah.
And so all of our clothes were stuck in there.
Oh my God.
And so this is me pulling up YouTube. All right, how do I take the top off? How do I unlock the latch?
Yeah.
I felt pretty handy afterwards, but
Yeah.
it lasted 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah.
Disappointing.
So, you know what? Hey, maybe we should start a trend. Maybe you should start leasing our washers and dryers too, right?
There's probably a service.
There should be, if there isn't, quite honestly, right? Because part of it is when you're making the argument, and you know, if you watch Ramsey or Susie Orman, most of the time the conventional wisdom is that financing makes a lot more sense than leasing. And I think if you're just talking financially, it's probably accurate if you're paying off the vehicle in a relatively short window and you're going to own it for a long time.
Oh,
right?
sure.
It's going to make a lot more sense. But when you start to think about like the things you really have to consider, number one, reliability, right? What are the records of reliability for that manufacturer? And sometimes you do have to drill down a little bit more than just manufacturer, because like I shared, Honda in general known for reliability, and hopefully many of their other models are quite reliable, but clearly the 2019 Odyssey is not one of those reliable models. And in all honesty, if you do research, that's actually the case. I want to say the 2019 and the 2020,
that's interesting.
Maybe,
maybe
the 18 were quite poor.
So if I'm distilling this correctly, if you do and are interested in an unreliable car or brand, hey, leasing.
Yeah,
that might make sense.
Exactly. So that's
Wipe
one of the arguments.
Clean before it starts going awry.
One of the arguments I'm going to make for leasing is reliability, because like you said, whatever it is, 36, 39 months, 48 months, whatever it is, you get to turn the vehicle back in. No issue. Wipe your hands clean of it. So that's nice. Another thing that I really hadn't thought about, of course, like when I went shopping for a car for Nico, and when I shop for a car for myself or Jody, you think about safety. But it always takes pretty far second to finance, right?
Yeah.
But as I got thinking about this and about Nico's accident, I got to thinking, well, what if he had that automatic braking system? Would that have prevented that accident, right? And it very well could have. I don't know. The road, in his defense, the roads were not great that day. They were slippery. So now, granted, maybe he was going a little too fast or waited a little too long to brake, whatnot. But would that have benefited him? It may have. And I did some research because I got to thinking about it. And what I read was that automatic braking, they've seen a 50% decrease in rear-end accidents in vehicles that have that automatic braking. And they've seen a 77% reduction in deadly crashes in vehicles that have that. So that got me to thinking just about not just safety, but technology as it pertains to safety, but just the vehicle itself. I think another really important part, technology, could be like something like Apple CarPlay, right, or hands-free devices, right, particularly for for younger kids, because I would never look at my phone while I was driving. I've been guilty of that from time to time. I think we all have, if we're being honest. But if you have like Bluetooth hookup to Apple CarPlay or something, you can throw your phone in the console or in the glove box and still have all that hands-free
You still have a
technology.
display. And let me say something. I never had Apple CarPlay in my family ever. Nothing like that.
Right.
Rose's car did.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Like my friends would talk about it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I still like the knobs and everything else. And my Ford Explorer has Bluetooth, which is good. But man,
Apple CarPlay
I had
is
no
different.
idea.
It is.
No idea.
It's so convenient. And the prompts that you can tell, like, hey, play some Coldplay for me. And it'll just,
It's
playing Coldplay.
as what we were saying earlier, removes that friction.
Exactly.
Makes it easier.
Yeah, and it removes the need. You mentioned, playing with the buttons and whatnot. You have to take your eye off the road often to do that. And things happen fast when you're driving. The car in front of you may have braked for some unknown reason, and next thing you know, you're in an accident.
You have no idea.
Yeah. But yeah, I think with technology, both safety and other technology, I think, again, you can make an argument for leasing and why that may make sense.
Sure. And then possibly that dealership group or the automobile company itself, they might be running a leasing deal too.
Exactly. In fact, you mentioned EVs earlier.
Oh.
And particularly, I've read that lease deals on EVs can be particularly beneficial.
Oh, of course. I saw a couple lease deals on the F-150, the Lightning.
Oh, yeah.
$350 a month.
Yeah.
$400 a month. Full size pickup truck.
Yeah.
For a 3 or 4 year lease. And
Yeah.
so that's incredible.
Well, that's interesting too, right? Because I remember going back, even all the way back to college, when you'd see these deals like, oh, you get a Volkswagen Jetta for $199 a month. So I'd go into the dealership and be like, hey, I want that Volkswagen that's $199. That's what I want. And what you'd maybe at that age, what I didn't know was that you had to read the fine print, right? Well, that was with $3,000 down, and it was so many miles per year.
2,000 miles a year, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Something ridiculous, right? So you do have to, that fine print is really important. Of course, I'm really interested in saving money
Sure.
and budgeting. So you hear about the 1% rule. Have you ever heard of the 1% rule as it pertains to leasing?
Familiar with it, but
Okay. So the 1% rule, and granted, they're hard to come by, is if you have a car, let's say it's worth $50,000 and you're going to put zero down and the payment's $500 a month, that's you've met the 1% rule.
Gotcha.
And that's considered to be an excellent deal. Okay. They're very hard to come by. You really have to really do your homework. And as it pertains to leasing, those things change usually on a monthly basis.
for sure.
The deals and incentives and things like that. So that's one tip. Use that as an idea, that 1% rule. If your payment is equal to 1% of the value, then you know you're getting a great deal. That's with zero down, right? So keep in mind, it's not with $5,000 down. It's maybe not as good a deal.
sure. Yeah.
So we talked a lot about, I feel like I'm really pushing for leasing, and probably, I think all the auto dealerships are loving me right now because I think they make better kickbacks or commissions on leases.
That might be variable too, whether it is more lease centric or more financing centric. And so probably depending on what the environment might be.
Yeah. Yep. So for you and your family, you've been a finance.
Yeah, financing. And so I financed the Ford Explorer and then financed the Ford Explorer was a used car. So financed that through a bank. And then for the Toyota, we financed that through Toyota. I don't know if I don't know if the technical name is Toyota Financial or Toyota Capital or something like that. So the guys over at Labadee helped us out a lot, and the financing deals were great.
Yeah.
They're fantastic too. Made everything super simple.
I tell you, that's the other thing I got to thinking about was, maybe we should welcome someone from one of the local dealerships to come in and talk to them.
A DIY.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Labadee, Garber,
Yeah.
Hagen Ford.
Well, Hagen's now Garber.
Yeah, I
right?
forgot about that. Garber.
Yeah.
Or Garber Ford of Bay City. Feeney, of course.
Yeah.
And you guys are listening out there. Would love to invite you guys in as a PSA. So please feel free to reach out. We'd love to go sit down, have a nice conversation.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe test drive one of those new cars.
Yeah, and we'd love to learn from you
Yeah.
the ins and outs. Now, I'm going to argue for leasing here, but so I own a Toyota 4Runner, right? Bought it, I don't know, a little over 3 years ago. And I think the MSRP was maybe $46,000 or $47,000. They're pretty affordable for the size SUV that they are. So I did lease it.
Okay.
After 3 years, which was just in December, went to turn it in. Of course, they wanted me to just turn it into them because it only had 42,000 miles on it, maybe. And, or maybe I'm getting my 42. It was somewhere in the 40,000 mile range that I had it. And so I bought it out of the lease because that is an option for you.
Okay.
You don't always have to worry so much about miles because everybody worries, well, I'm only going to get 12,000 miles a year, and then you're going to owe these penalties if you go over that
Maybe
amount.
25 cents a mile.
Yeah, which can be very
Yeah.
expensive. But if you think you're going to buy the car, not an issue. I bought the car, then flipped around, and they wanted to pay me $42,000 to buy the car from me, right? So there are those. That's why I think studying again. So we already talked about reliability. Now we talk about residual value.
Sure.
Right? And there are certain cars that maintain their residual value.
Oh, of course. I mean,
much better.
If
than
you think
others.
about two car brands, one that might be unreliable versus reliable, the one that might be more reliable might be 3,000 or 4,000 more, but in 5 years it might be worth $10,000 or $15,000 more. It's not it's not inconceivable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, when I think about cars that retain value extremely well, of course, the 4Runner, because I have a personal experience with it. The Jeep Wrangler, which I don't have an interest in personally. I mean, they're pretty cool.
They're super nice looking cars.
Yeah.
I would only want to buy one if I took it off-roading.
Oh,
which
exactly.
I'd feel afraid taking that thing off-roading.
Yeah. I'd love to have one as like a third car, like to your point about off-road. If you're going to, I don't know, over to Pentwater, over to the dunes or whatnot
Oh,
or
for
something.
sure. Have like a soft top on it with a stick shift would be a lot of fun.
Yep, would be a great time. They have great resale value. I don't think the reliability rating's quite there.
I've seen conflicting reports because I've seen from some other people, okay, maybe it's not as reliable. Unfortunately, the Jeep brand suffers from a little bit of more unreliability.
Sure.
We lucked out pretty well with Rose's car, but she had
right.
a Jeep Cherokee, not a Wrangler.
Yep.
But I've seen good things because that Wrangler has I think it has the same V6s, or I shouldn't say the same. I don't know how long it goes back for, but they haven't dramatically changed it.
Yep. Yeah, so definitely have to consider, like we said, reliability, residual value. And like I said, I think, and you probably agree with this given that you finance your vehicles, but financing probably long-term makes the most sense, right? It's going to be the cheapest option or the least expensive option for you. Again, you might give up a little bit in the way of some technology features, right? Like you said, you're missing Apple CarPlay. Now, I will tell you, in the TikTok shop, there's little things that you can buy to plug into your USBs.
I've seen some things like that. They can kind of replicate it. Yeah,
I have one in the 4Runner because the 4Runner doesn't have hands-free Apple CarPlay. But I bought this $20 little device, plug it in, and now I do have hands-free. So there's another potential hack for you, is to try to find some workaround where you can get some of these technology features in older vehicles or vehicles that don't have those certain
There's a lot of really
features.
cool online tools too that can really help you identify for a car like what that right break even might be. Like most people would think, okay, if I buy this car and I own it for 30 years, that will guaranteed be the cheapest thing, which theoretically, you're not having a large outlay, but then you're also maintaining that car over time. And so I've seen a couple of blogs where the optimal, now quotations, because everything could be different.
Yeah.
The optimal time is between 8 to 12 years.
Yeah.
And between 150 to 200,000 miles.
Okay.
Past that, people see, okay, what's
issues.
the current value? Like imagine the car is only worth $3,000.
Yeah.
And you need a new transmission. Well, that could be worth the whole car.
Yeah, it could be probably.
Even
I know
more.
the transmission in our Honda was $7,000 or $8,000.
Oh, never mind.
Just to replace that. Yeah, I mean the part alone I think was $3,000 or $4,000.
And then something that doesn't get talked about enough is imagine that you are busy. Well, I know we're both busy. We both have busy families.
Yep.
Very go.
Yep.
Having a car break down, having it in the repair shop throws a huge wrench.
Yes.
Huge wrench into your social life, into your everyday life. And so that's something else to go think about too. Maybe if you're constantly go, you don't want to deal with the headaches and stress, because when you go take it into the repair shop, you don't know what that bill could be. But for leasing, okay,
right.
I know that I'm paying money every single month and I'm not going to have it paid off.
Right.
But I know from a mathematical perspective, hey, this is how much it's going to cost. And so some people like that piece of money.
Yeah. No, in today's world, and it seems like ever since COVID, there's it's funny because it's sort of like BC and AC, before COVID and after COVID. And after COVID, so many things changed. One was when you need repairs, right? I know there are some shops here in Midland, you're looking 6-8 weeks out before they're even starting on your vehicle, in which case you're going to have to pay. In my case, I had to deal with it. It was, I don't know, a couple $1,000s, maybe $2,000 or $3,000 for me to rent a vehicle for that
For sure.
time.
Yeah.
So there's another added expense and inconvenience. So maybe another plug for leasing. I don't know. I know we seem to really be heading down that path, but I'm sure there's a very good case and very good reasons to finance too.
Just to go sum it up, I think it's a lot like what personal finance is. It's very personalized to everyone's own family and situation. Some people might be very, very morally opposed to financing, and they might say you need to go buy a car in cash. But I think a lot of it's also shaped by the things that we go experience within our own lives, just like investing.
Sure.
Imagine you're an investor, you start investing money 2 weeks before the great financial crisis.
Right.
That's really going to dramatically shape you into being more risk and more, but being more risk-less and
risk-averse.
Risk-averse, sorry.
Yeah.
Right where I was looking for.
No, I mean, you look at my career, right? My background. I pretty much started in finance during the dot-com bubble when that burst. Then we got a little bit of a bump and, things were going well, and then the Great Recession hits. So I I'm always sort of waiting for that other shoe to fall, right? Maybe a little bit more pessimistic than some others. And I know some folks in my age group
Sure. Yeah.
feel that way too.
And so imagine if, let's go apply the same methodology to cars. Imagine that you've owned 2 or 3 cars. You had a clunker here, a clunker there,
Right.
and then you're like, swear off this brand, and then kind of goes downhill, waterfall effect. So
Exactly. So let us know what you think. To those that are listening, those that are watching, financing, leasing, where do you stand on this? How do you feel about it? The pros and cons of either or.
And if there's anyone in the car industry, dealership industry as well, please reach out. We'd love to have you on the podcast so we can learn from a DIY perspective, from a personal perspective, how these things go about in a live setting.
Yeah. No, I would. Of course, we know a lot of folks in that industry. And so to those of you that I know out there, please reach out. We'd love to. First one, first serve. We'll have you on the show and talk all things autos. So,
Absolutely. So, Kevin, 2 things to end the segment. We have a fun chart that we'll show, but let's go start off with what you've been watching.
So I have been watching 0 Day.
Okay.
And I know you're into this too, because I spoke with one of our coworkers about it. I'm only, I think, 2.5 episodes into it.
Okay.
And so I'm still trying to wrap my head around like exactly what's happening.
Sure.
But clearly, and so I don't know if you want to, because I know you're watching that too, correct?
It's on my watch list.
It's on your list.
I have not
Okay.
started it yet. No,
Okay.
no. And so I've been waiting for a couple series to drop. And so Jack Reacher season 3.
Oh, yeah.
Just dropped last week. You have 1923 to just dropped. And so 1923 season 2.
Yeah.
That just dropped. There's The Last of Us dropping in 2 months. And so I had a little bit of a lull there before 0 Day was released. And so I took a page back, went to Disney Plus.
Okay.
I've been watching some of the Pirates of the Caribbean films.
Oh, okay.
Bringing out a big part.
Captain Jack.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I mean, the most recent film was 2017, but the very first film, 2003.
Wow. Yeah.
Hard to believe.
Makes me feel old. Yeah. I tell you another show I love that just released their second season, White Lotus.
Okay.
Have you ever watched it? You need to go back, watch season 1, season 2, and then you'll get it's just really great show. Really enjoy it on HBO.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll definitely add it to the list.
Yeah, check it out.
So for the second thing, Kevin had brought into the studio today another chart that we will also go share, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
It basically shows. Why don't you go describe more?
Hockey fights. Okay.
There we go.
They don't break out as often as they used to. Now, the one thing I really wanted to do, but didn't have a chance to do, was to see how the popularity, and I think this is really important.
Oh,
but if we could overlay, and maybe between now and when this airs,
Maybe
we
TV
can get
ratings,
a chance to overlay it. Yeah. How has the popularity of hockey changed since hockey fights have reduced so significantly? I think this came up, probably you shared this because of the 4 Nations Cup.
3 fights?
Yeah.
There are 3 fights in the first 9 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. So, and everybody, you go to a fight and a hockey game breaks out. You've heard that saying
people
before.
are cheering on.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember as a kid going to see the Saginaw Generals, pre-Saginaw Spirit. And there was a guy named Bruiser who every single hockey game you were out there to see him. He didn't wear a helmet.
Oh,
anything. He was out there ready to throw down.
He was out looking down
every game. Yeah. So I'm curious to see. I don't know. What do our listeners think too? And the viewers.
And for the listeners out there too, what this chart essentially shows is fights per game. And so back in the early 2000s, yes. And so the early 2000s, there'd be about 0.5 fights per game, and then it's been going down since about 2008, 2009, from about 0.5 fights per game to about 0.2 fights, and so dropping off. And so it would be interesting to go overlay that with ratings, or maybe just other advancements with safety, player safety, or maybe something from the league that we don't know.
Yeah. I tell you, going back to the Stanley Cup when the Avalanche and the Red Wings despised one another, and those battles, the Patrick Waugh and not Osgood, Mike Vernon fight that you see, especially if you live in Michigan, right? You see the photos of that fight all the time. But that made, and I was living in Colorado at that time.
Oh, cool.
So,
Okay.
So I'd get picked on during those games and whatnot. But I don't know. For me, always added a little bit of excitement. Not sure how others feel about that, but I'm assuming other people have
Yeah,
some interest in.
and
it
you know,
too.
it's pretty unique too because I mean, you could possibly see some fights break out in other professional sporting events, but then that's quickly broken up, not
Yeah.
allowed. And,
Yeah.
and this is, hey, refs are like, okay, let's
Yeah.
go see the fair fight.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know if you saw it, but in the Four Nations, after one of those first couple of fights, one of the players went over to the referee and was like, "Man, wasn't that cool?" And even the referee was like, "Yeah, that was pretty neat seeing that happen."
I didn't see that.
So yeah, it was interesting to see. So
Well, perfect. For everyone out there listening, watching, tuning into this podcast, until next time,